First, um, Alderman Sigwart hopefully is on his way there. Maybe he's on his way. And we have City Administrator Tony Brown on the phone. And Alderman Tierney, are you there? And Alderman Tierney is not joining us yet. He may be joining us by phone today. So we'll move right along. That was a roll call. In the chairman's business, I have none. Just to thank everybody for meeting out at Lake Street. It was good. Thank you, Rob. We'll move on to item 5, approval of minutes from April 13th, 2021. Hopefully you've had a chance to review. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from April 13th?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Jim. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Gasper. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Moving right to item 6, public comments and appearances. Do we have anyone who would like to make public comments or appearances tonight? Yes, please step right up, state your name and address.
Joe Burke and 516 West Michigan Street in Port Washington. So one of the things that I've been inquiring about has been, I've been talking to my alderman about it, the Lighthouse and Breakwater project. It seems like every October or whenever we have a really bad storm, that gateway gets washed out or whatever. I don't know what the future plans are for it, if there is a 5-10 year plan for improving it, or what the civil corps was, the agreement was, or whatever, that kind of stuff. But I guess bring it up for discussion again and figure out what the plan is with fixing that. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments tonight? Okay, we'll move right into old business. Any old business for the betterment of the group? Okay. Well, let's go right into item 8A then, which is to consider flood control options on Lake Street. And so this is teed up nicely from where we were just touring. So take it away, Rob.
Okay. So first of all, I thought maybe I'll quickly back up and talk a tiny bit about how we got where we are today. So in 2000, back to 2019, we received the alternatives analysis from Stantec, and I think at the time, based on the wide range of costs of the various options to control the 500-year event, ranging from $200,000 to over $2 million, the board, it was the direction of the board that we go ahead and pursue the road reprofiling. So here we are in 2021, late, and I would say very late last year, Newport Shores broke ground on their project, and that was not a certainty until late in the year, so we did not include Lake Street, the portion in front of the building, until after the budget was completed. So in looking at reconstructing Lake Street in front of Newport Shores and the rest of it, for that matter, down to the marina is in our TIF plan, we decided now would be a good time to look at Lake Street north of Jackson as well. So that's why the timing is the way it is. There's no obligation. As I've said, we've done our preliminary engineering work. Bremer has. We're under no obligation to we're not committed to the reprofiling. This is our first step in engineering it. It could be done at any time. The work on Lake Street south of Jackson, however, I think now is a little bit more urgent, although it's not essential to do it now. There would be some rework of the street because the Newport Shores project is going about halfway into Lake Street, and so it seemed like it was as good a time as any to reconstruct the entire roadway. So to the point of flood control on Lake Street, I guess to summarize, we had a lengthy discussion out in the field. We have a long agenda tonight, so we can spend as much or as little time on it tonight as you want to. But I guess my recommendation is to at least press the pause button on the road profiling project. And if that being the case, I would say if that's the desire of the Board of Public Works, then I think the two options in front of us would be to, if the daylighting of the box culvert in Veterans Park were of any interest to the Board of Public Works, if they didn't find it objectionable, we could do more engineering on that, where I may come back with a proposal or simply some work that we could sketch up in-house. I don't know how far I could go with that, but we could look at that a little further. Or again, as we discussed, the existing swale that's out there, which was constructed in 2012, was constructed to the 100-year event. And 6 years later, we experienced the 500-year event, which of course, the results of that event were devastating to the high rise, where they discovered that they had some issues with their own storm sewer system that exacerbated the problem of flooding. They've corrected those, and then using the engineering that was done by Stantec, raised the grade of their parking lot and surrounding the underground parking. So they've raised it to a profile that protects them from the 500-year event. So right now our filtration plant is vulnerable to flooding in the 500-year event, but it is protected in the 100-year event. So again, that's an option to go back to designing to a 100-year event, which is not uncommon in engineering, although again, as we all know, the 100-year event is not necessarily spaced out every 100 years. So it's I don't think we're on a critical timeline here. I think it's something we could take our time in considering. But that said, it was just a year ago on Sunday or Monday that we had another major flooding event down there. So I don't know when the next one is. And Leo can chime in, but they've done some work at the plant that I think is protected them from flooding and lesser events. I think the 500-year event, they're still going to get water in the plant, but go ahead,
One of
Leo.
the things I had one of my crew do is build a wall around one of the vents that we have that go down into Plant 1 workshop room. And back in 18, the majority of water came in through that vent. We had about this much of a rim around that vent, and I had Jerry Weiss pour concrete around it to about 2.5 feet. Now, last year when I met Rob and Alderman Gasper down there, that Sunday night, still running on the south side of the plant was a good 6 to 8 inch deep little river running along that area. We got minimal water into the plant that night, nothing like we had in 2018. That helped a lot. But we still, even last year with that event on that Sunday night, we still had water infiltrate the plant under a door and through some conduit down into Plant 1 electrical room on the south side of the building.
Now, there is the as we proceed with the needs analysis, which we have tonight on the agenda, again, that can be, there can be some modifications, I think, made to the plant as part of that work, which would, could protect the plant in greater events. But again, not the 500-year event.
I agree with Rob, because if anybody's had a chance to look at the needs assessment, what's gonna transpire on that south end of the plant will give us more protection on that south end.
Leo, what's going on the south side? What's gonna be going on the south side of the,
Well, what,
A clear well and pump house above ground.
okay.
In fact, another building to the south. And a generator as well.
I guess, I guess first I'd like any comments on any feedback on what you saw tonight. We had the street laid out for what it would look like, to give you a good idea of what the reprofiling would look like as designed by, well, I should say schematically designed by Stantec.
I guess I'll chime in. Yeah, looking at well, especially seeing how high that actually would be, I don't think that's very practical. And two, we have to make sure we plugged all of the other ways to go around it. So I don't see that as being building the hump in the road as being a great solution. So I'd like to see us kind of put that one on the back burner for the time being, and I'd like to see a little bit more information on, or a little further investigation on the daylighting of the culvert following roughly alternative 3A, looking at some different possibilities for cross sections, and if do we need to, can we go straight, or does it need to meander a little bit? Just get a little more information on that. Maybe a little better estimate of costs too.
Okay. Any comments, Rob, on if we look on page 8 of 12 there, just looking at the study from 2019? Because I see we show the 500-year event, are the blue lines. It looks like the water goes south down Lake Street, but we are saying in this picture that it doesn't really affect the water treatment plant with the open swale, the daylighted stream, I mean.
Microphone?
Thanks. You can see the water stays primarily in the street. It does come up against that southwest corner.
That's where it's going in now, Leo, with that southwest corner there.
Yeah.
Southwest and directly on the south side.
So that's something we probably have to look at closer. I don't know, if that's the, I don't know if that file, models to the 400-year event. I don't know at what point it actually starts running through the filtration plant. Maybe the worst case scenario is we do all this and then we get a 1,000-year event.
And then
It's part of the decision is what do you design to?
And then with the condo making their adjustments, does that increase they're allocating some of that water going into their driveway. So with that being fixed, I would assume more water stays in that pathway, or no? Hard to say, right?
Yeah, I'm not a modeler, but I would not anticipate that would have any impact, that the work they've done would have any impact on flooding elsewhere.
Any other comments?
Well, I definitely agree that seeing the road out there, that's not an alternative. That's on paper, and while we were talking about it, it sounded like a viable idea, but in practicality isn't. But at some point, and not particularly nuts about the daylighting option either, but I think probably some further research should be done to see if that's the best alternative. Because it would certainly seem like the water plant is is at risk there. And but I don't know what to say as far as, what do you plan for? It would seem like the 500-year thing is the 500-year storm is the reasonable standard. And with the improvements that are going to be made at the water plant, that I think it would be wise to at least get more information on that potential alternative for us to consider.
Yeah, I also appreciated going out there. I could see the ski jump. You have to hand out ski poles when we go over the speed bump. But I would say, I'm not too keen on the daylighting either at this point. I do think we need to look at the water plant, but if there's going to be other things going on there, like you said, that we could probably incorporate into the water plant. Some of the filtration problems with the water influx. So, I think at this time we would just kind of hang loose. The condos are doing fine. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on down at that lakefront right now. So that makes it kind of hard to say, let's do this or that until we actually see what's going on.
Is there, maybe this was discussed, is there an ability to berm the water treatment plant in a similar fashion that the condos did in terms of the driveway entrances or around it, or is that not practical?
I guess I would say probably not, because in order to, for instance, at 592.5, I think, Jeff, didn't you say that that's like at least 1.5 feet above the sidewalk
Okay,
in front of those driveways right now? And so you'd create an
it's just, it goes,
unforgiving slope going down into the building.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes, Alderman Tierney, please.
I'm sorry I joined you later. I obviously wasn't out there with you guys, but listening to what you've all said about your response to being out there and seeing it, it's obvious that I'd have to say it must be obvious that pump is going to work. I was wondering if you guys didn't really like the idea of opening, essentially open water. Could you go into a little more detail about what you don't like about it?
Who would you like to answer that question, Alderman Tierney?
I know. My problem is right now I can't see anybody, so I didn't get. I think it might have been Steve, but or Jim.
I think Jim and Phil. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead if you want to address.
So if you could just, I would just like to know what you don't like about it. If you've got a specific thing, if you just don't think it's the right thing to do right now, that's fine too.
This is Phil. This is Phil. I think on the daylighting, if that's what you're talking about,
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
yeah, I'm thinking that it's just going to be kind of a nuisance more than anything else. We're talking about putting plants, maybe fence, maybe, are we going to end up with, century fence around it? We know we have to put a gate in just to keep the kids from crawling into the tunnel itself. I just think it's a bad place because there's a lot of kids running around there. And yeah, we know parents should be watching them at the park, but we know they don't.
Okay.
Just kind of, there again, have to protect the little ones, unfortunately.
And I agree with most of that. It would be changing the area down there from even though, like, when we were there, Alderman Gasper pointed out where it's that like dead spot where the silt is, and that's a problem. It's an eyesore problem and not much of a practical one, but to significantly change it with moving the play equipment, which I said isn't that big a deal, as long as it would be worth the, you know, as much objectivity as could go into it, I'd be for it if I thought that it was really going to help protect the water plant. And then it's just a matter of kind of being able to see, similar, if there is such a way to do it, similar to like seeing how the road was out there tonight and saying what sounded like a good idea maybe isn't such a great idea. If it can be reached that this is a best alternative that can be used, while I don't know that I'd be real nuts about it, I think the overreaching fact would be protecting the water plant. And I'd if we could see more information on it, on what the likelihood is that if we made changes there, that it's going to at least significantly improve or lessen the risk for the water plant.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate both of you expounding on that. It helps me a great deal. Rob, you said, I think in your memo, you said that that Park and Rec was in favor of daylighting this. Is that true? And why do they like that idea? Do you know? Could you give me a background on that?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I would, and I think they're anticipating it. I don't know that they're in favor of it. I guess I don't know whether or not, and I think Mike, you're on the board, right? Yeah. So Alderman Gasper might be able to speak more to it. I don't know to what length they've discussed it. I don't think they're opposed to it. I think I could correctly say.
Yeah, it was discussed when that option came up the other year. It was discussed a little bit amongst the Park and Rec board, and while the board didn't take any action on it or on whether they liked it or not, but there was some discussion on it. And in general, I think everyone was pretty much okay with doing it. The parks, we've been moving towards naturalizing areas as ways of reducing maintenance. And honestly, at Swale has been a maintenance problem because the grass doesn't want to grow in it. And with limited budgets and stuff on Park and Rec, things that reduce long-term maintenance obligations of parks tends to be looked at fairly favorable because it, in long run, saves us money.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, Alderman Tierney?
No, I guess it sounds, just from what you've all said, it sounds like we need more information at this point. I'm a little disappointed that this far down the road we're at this place, but I guess it's kind of, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think we're at the point where none of the alternatives are perfect, and I think a lot of us saw the reprofiling as, at the time I thought it was an elegant solution that would work, and based on cost and based on what we wanted to accomplish. But when you look at it, when you listen to Alderman Gasper last month, the things, start to work against it. And, the reason I don't love the daylighting, thus far is the idea of putting another, culvert entry where you daylight it and having 8 feet, tall entry to the culvert there, and just the amount of depth that might be required to open up that swale. And it kind of changes the use of the park at this time. I know we can move some things, but obviously having that play equipment there at the opening near the water, in my mind, is a unique amenity for that park use. Moving it to the other side of the park, I think, takes away from some of the charm of that equipment there. But obviously, I think we're all open to learning more about this alternative. Okay. We don't have to make any decisions tonight, right? Other than to maybe direct staff to look further into it. Are we seeking a proposal for engineering, or do we just want to do a little more research on it, Rob?
Yeah, I guess my takeaway from this is that the consensus of the board is to no longer pursue construction of the road reprofiling this year. and to give further investigation to the possibilities of daylighting the creek.
That sound good? Alderman Sigward, you're there with us on that one? Okay. All right. That sounds good, Rob. Okay, so then we'll move right along then to item 8B, which is to review the North Lake Street design from Washington to Jackson and Jackson Street from Harborview Lane to Lake Street.
Okay.
And this is what we were talking about right before we came over, right? Right, Rob? Or is this different?
Yep, this is it.
Okay.
Yeah, so why don't, only bring this up, if I can, up on the screen. Okay, just give me 1 minute here to get on the right. I had the page and now I lost it. There we go. All right, and yeah, what? This one, yeah. I just have to connect. No, there receiver's address, so it's wait, why is it not coming up, or is it? 8167. It might be. Well, the first thing I put in is the HTTP, right? Just the, okay, oh, the 192. Okay, I was wondering why it wasn't popping up. Okay. I'll get it one of these days. Okay, super. All right, so we were standing, of course, here out in the field, and so the first thing again we looked at was trying the best we could to square up this intersection. So in order to do that, the sidewalk crosses the right-of-way line. You see the right-of-way line is here. All right, and so really you're only taking about a 10-foot by 10-foot triangle as a pedestrian easement, so that's something we'd have to discuss with the Lighthouse condos, and if we can't do it, then we'll have to go back to doing the best we can to make this intersection work, and it won't be squared up as well. But my takeaway and the consensus from the board at our meeting was that acceptable the way it's drawn up. Yeah. Okay, so moving downward or southward, as we discussed, by eliminating the one parking spot here. See, there would be no parking available here or here, and of course there's none permitted anyway in this block, or here, or here. So we keep parking here on the west side for this block. This allows us to create an 11.5-foot sidewalk between this is the new Newport Shores building here. So this 11.5-foot sidewalk would be consistent with what we have on Franklin Street, would allow us to cut out a planter, or I should say a street tree planter or two. We haven't placed those yet, but possibly some site furniture or other amenities down here. Excuse me. It allows us to bring this west curb in towards the center line a couple of feet, and so now we have a better terrace area there for both, whether it's trees or snow storage, or essentially the appearance of the street will give it a better feel. As Jeff Shvasta mentioned, they did the truck turning movements here, so that's why this looks a little bit funky, but it brings us into a 24-foot wide roadway, which is a little bit more narrow than it is now, but it allows us to install a new sidewalk, which is currently not here between this driveway to the marina. This is the northernmost driveway to the marina. Allows us to put a sidewalk between Washington and that driveway, which I think will be a nice addition, at least when I'm walking. I just have this tendency to want to keep walking east and then go down Lake Street on the east side. But in any case, so it allows us to improve the sidewalk system. We're not really losing anything in terms of parking. We're not losing anything in terms of truck movements. I think it'll look nice when it's completed. We'll be, as I said, replacing the entire water main, and then the force main for the lift station, which is right here, from here until, I guess, up here somewhere. I'm sorry, where's? Okay, oh, way up here. Okay. So let me jump down to Jackson Street. So, yeah, because as Dan mentioned, all right, so this is it right here, right, Dan? Tracing it kind of, the forest main that we're replacing. So anyhow, here are where these are proposed townhomes here. If these move forward, we're going to kick the curb out here to allow them to put in driveway aprons, and then that removes parking, which is what allows us to increase the terrace area. We'd bring this terrace area out a little bit too. This is just a 2-foot terrace area. And so we gently transition towards Harborview Lane. And then actually in reality, we'd probably carry this curb through the intersection because there's no parking there as well. But one of the comments we received at the meeting was to double check the turning movements coming around here. But, you know, as we talked about, you can see where the existing curb is. This is the light. These are the light lines here. So this is actually going to improve this right turn here. And then even for a left turn here, I think you're going to bring, you know, a smoother turn for semis coming around to either the filtration plant or the wastewater treatment plant. This is the 8-foot sidewalk between the interurban trail. I guess I'd call it a multi-use path. This was an application that the city made to the DNR several years ago for a stewardship grant. We received the grant and have just been waiting for Newport Shores to kick in so we could construct that path. So now you'll have a connection between the gateway to the breakwater and the interurban. And that may be more detailed than you wanted to hear, but if you want any other details on it, I'd be happy to go over it.
Is that terrace between the back of curb and the 8-foot path wide enough to plant trees in? Or is it only going to be, is the 4.5 feet from the face of curb or from the back of curb?
Back of curb.
So we could potentially plant some smaller trees.
Yeah, the plant, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, for a tree lawn, the bigger the better. But we have, the tree planters downtown. Those are only 3 feet wide by 5 feet long, and so you can still fit a decent tree, and even coming in on Grand Avenue, that's only a 3.5 foot terrace, and we have at maturity will be medium-sized trees, but those have really taken off. I don't know if anyone pays attention besides me coming into town, but those trees that were planted about 10 years ago have really, really matured well and create a nice entrance to the city. So if they're planted right, which I think we're doing a better job planting our trees and picking the species so that they don't raise the sidewalks or affect the curb.
I guess otherwise, my only engineering nitpick on Jackson Street yet is the northwest curb ramps could be split into two pretty easily.
The north, okay, give me 1 second, north.
So
Oh, okay,
yeah, because you just would have to square both those crosswalks up a little bit, and you could have them with the detectable warning fields pointing the right way. I'm not sure how problematic it is to have bicycles going over the hubs at a 45-degree angle, but I would imagine if you're squared up to them, it's going to go better.
wait, say that, I would say that comment one more.
With the detectable warning fields as shown, you'd be, if you're riding your bike on the 8-foot path, you would
yeah.
be hitting those at about a 45-degree angle, which at the very least is going to be a rough ride. If it's a little bit wet, could potentially cause slippage. They're designed for you to go square 90 degrees up and down those. So
Sure.
that's, particularly along the trail, it would be better if that could be split.
Yeah, I think we can certainly do that. When Jeff and I discussed it, the thing that you're fighting a little bit there, I think, Jeff, we talked about this, was that, the placement of the stop sign and the stop bar. So we'll finesse that in.
Luckily, it's grassy on that corner, and you shouldn't have too much vision problem.
Right. I agree.
Rob, back on Lake Street and East Jackson on the filtration plant side. The way that curve comes out, does it have to be that far out?
You're talking here?
Yes.
Okay. Well, okay.
If we're trying to square stuff off, would that be better to open that up a little bit?
Yeah, I guess, well, I could ask Jeff, you'd have to come up to the microphone here, but I think it was done intentionally. Of course, this portion of it is designed by, this is the part that we're matching from Newport Shores. They designed this part. So I think, what we're trying to do is just essentially match the curb line the south curb line is what I think we're trying to do. Yeah, is there any other reason to
Come out
other
and-
than probably just, the grade of catching this crosswalk here into here? I mean, it gives you a little bit more grade to work with.
Well, I'd say you've looks like about a 5-foot deflection there that it sticks out. And in that case, it's going to be visible, so it's not likely to get clipped by vehicles. So I doubt if it's that problematic. For an example, one where you have a little bump out like that can be a problem. If anyone knows, by Costco, there's the stop sign between Costco and Kohl's. If you're going north and you want to make the right turn, that has a little bump out. It's like a foot or so. And I've never hit it with my car, but it always feels like I'm going to. But this sticks out a lot more than that. So with a fairly large radius curve there. So I doubt if it really should be a problem because it's going to be following the alignment of the road.
What about plowing?
If they're going down Lake Street, they would just go straight down Lake Street.
Right. But then they got to try to get behind that little curby there.
But it's not sticking out any further than what they were on the south side.
Yeah, I would say it's probably going to make plowing a little easier than if you had the curb farther to the south. But I don't drive a plow. Right, they're not plowing. Right, they're not responsible for plowing Jackson anymore, anyway. And honestly, I don't think that's going to affect their. Yeah, I mean, right. So Newport Shores is going to be responsible for plowing all of this, and as you can see, there are many nooks and crannies that they're going to have to plow. So I don't think this is going to add any level of complexity to the snow plowing. Right, yeah, right.
Is it wide enough for an emergency vehicle? It's kind of hard to.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think right here, this is 24, and again, this was Newport Shores design, it's 24 feet. So it looks smaller than it is. But it's 2 car widths. I mean, it's two full lane widths. So the only other comment that we really haven't addressed that, Alderman Gasper has brought it up a couple of times, so I'm not ignoring it. Is pavers, and I guess if we have it as an alternate, would you like? I mean, are we looking at if we put them in the entire street, we're concreting the street, and then we're putting pavers over the top, and that gets a little. Right, I'd be nervous about putting pavers just on a sand base in the street.
Well, if you're doing permeable pavers, that's generally what you would do. Is
Yeah,
you have
I
an
know,
aggregate
right?
base, and you, in that case, end up with a thicker aggregate structure in order to distribute the forces versus just asphalt. You can do pavers on concrete. I've done that on projects. Doesn't always work as well as you would hope.
Yeah. We can. So would your preference to be to get an alternate on permeable pavers?
Well, the advantage of if we were going to head that route, besides the aesthetics, the advantage is that if somebody needs to dig up the road and stuff, you pull the pavers down, you rebuild your base, and you put the pavers back over, and you can't tell you ever dug up the road. It also has the advantage of letting water go through it. Our marina was the first certified green marina in the state of Wisconsin, and it really fits along with that pretty well too. In that you have the filter medium between the bricks, and it filters a lot of small particulates through there and stuff, so it doesn't get directly into the lake that way. I'm not saying it's absolutely practical. It's something I would love to see, and I would love to see it investigated at the very least. But yeah, putting it on concrete, I don't think is practical at all. If we're gonna head for the idea of permeable pavers, we should do permeable pavers.
Quick question, Alderman Gasper. Are there varying degrees of quality in permeable pavers? I mean, I've done permeable pavers not for street paving, but a project, for walkways, and sometimes the brick degrades and stuff. How do those things hold up with snow plows and traffic and all those?
Well, they usually say to assume that you're going to have failure of 1% of bricks annually. So you will get some that degrade. If one's sticking up a little bit and a snowplow gets it, yeah, a snowplow could damage it. I guess I'm not really an expert on snowplowing with it. I'm trying to think the pavers that were done in the Tosa Village, if that was permeable down there or not on the street, because that was done a few years ago. We could see how that's been holding up for them. Well, no, they're different. They're different. So when you have permeable pavers, the bricks are purposely made to keep a separation between the bricks so that water will infiltrate between them, and you'll have a special sand in between. And then water goes through into your base and either can be picked up either flow in your base to an underdrain that would pick it up, or ideally it flows into the subgrade. And down by the marina, or down this area, it's all sand subgrade, so it should infiltrate pretty well. So the bricks themselves they're a little bit different because of that. They're made to keep a little bit of spacing on them, but they're similar in a lot of ways because it is a pavers brick yet. They're usually a concrete pavers brick versus a baked brick these days. I'm not sure on if what's all offered by different companies, but it is similar. But the idea is that you still build a road with modern techniques. You have a properly compacted base, and the bricks go over the top. And in that case, you essentially have a forever roadway that you should, if it's properly maintained, you should be able to just maintain bad bricks. You swap them out, put new ones in. You clean the filter medium out every year, every other year, and it should allow water to continue going through. It should also essentially, you just have to, fix a broken brick and the road lasts forever. A lot of places that back in the old days that were done with pavers brick did not imagine the forces of the vehicles driving on top of them today, and that's really why it didn't hold up. It wasn't the bricks that failed, it was the underlying bases that failed. And that's often why they head towards looking at concrete underneath. I've seen that on crosswalks a lot. I don't know, I assume that's what we did on the crosswalks on Franklin Street, that they have layer concrete underneath them. And usually you see it in that case because it makes sure that the brick doesn't settle in and you don't end up with a bump there.
Do these ones, Alderman Gasper, require putting stuff in between the bricks every year?
If you're doing permeable and you want them to remain permeable, yeah, you have a filter medium, which is a fine sand, and they would come through once a year or once every other year with a vac truck. And there are services that do that around here. They basically suck out the filter medium, then they put new filter medium in. This is a couple-hour job to do, and that keeps it so that traps all the particulates there.
And that would be our responsibility.
Right, we'd have to, in that case, we'd probably have to hire a firm annually, contract with somebody to do it. Like I said, it's something that probably costs more upfront. It probably costs more on an annual basis, but it looks nice. And in theory, you shouldn't ever have to really reconstruct the whole road. It should be basically just to maintain it. So in the long, the manufacturers always claim that over the life of the road, it costs the same as an asphalt or concrete roadway.
Well, it doesn't hurt us to get a bid on it, does it? So, I think I love the idea of permeable pavers, but in addition, is there a way we could, get a firm to come in and give us a presentation, Alderman Gasper, on it? I mean, because if we're gonna, go down the road, I think we'd want to learn a little bit more about how they work.
Sure, I'll reach out to, I'll start with Unilock, who provided our pavers
Yeah, if we had a short
down on
presentation.
Franklin Street, and I'm sure they could pretty much provide us the guidance we need.
Is if we're going to pursue it, I don't know if this would be where we'd stop, so we maybe want to learn more.
Yeah, I think county's been marketing it too.
On the material.
County markets everything these days.
Right, yes.
Now, if we can get a presentation, that would be great. I think to look at that area, the Marina District, holistically on pavers would be a good idea.
Okay, sure, no problem. And then, the sidewalk in front of Newport Shores, would you like to see the Franklin Street pavers bid as an alternate there, as opposed to just plain concrete? Or, I don't know how if we'd have permeable pavers there too, or I'm a little concerned about, I don't know. I guess I honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, we could do similar to Franklin Street on the sidewalk too, but if we're doing pavers in the street, it makes sense to look at pavers for the sidewalk too, I think.
All right, okay.
And otherwise too, we could always look at that just for crosswalks also, but usually it's not going to work well with asphalt road and then trying to do like pavers brick for the crosswalk or a fancy concrete crosswalk. They always seem to settle differential at a different rate and you end up with bumps.
Okay. All right. So, all right, my takeaway then is proceed with the design geometry the way we have it. Continue with that design and add the pavers as an alternate bid. Otherwise, it would be an asphalt street and the crosswalks would be the high visibility laddered. We show them as two lines, but we'd put in the ladder design, which show up a lot better.
Do you need a motion for that, Rob? The Lake Street design approving?
Either that or just if that's the consensus, I'm fine going forward. I don't know, and I'm looking at Jeff, do you need any more direction? Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I think just generally we're looking for some direction because, my understanding is that we're still trying to get this built this fall. So if we're going to stay on that time frame, obviously we're in May, we're going to be losing some of the construction season if we, extend this out too long. So, if we can just keep everything condensed and get some decisions sooner rather than later, so that one on geometry and then two on some of the permeable paver concepts, because if we have to lose, let's say, 2 months by the time we get somebody in here to give a presentation, and on the monthly board meetings, we may be into like late season construction at that time. So
Yeah, my recommendation is just gonna be, well, you'll design it, of course, as if doesn't matter what it's made out of, right? And then, for bidding, we'll get in touch with, whether it's Uniloc or county or either. We'll get a spec from them, get an alternate, and then when the bids come in, that night, we can make a decision and have someone here from county or Uniloc to assist in making that decision. But, so it wouldn't delay, the way I see it moving forward, it won't delay us at all,
Yep.
by
Yeah, I just need the direction because obviously I'll be designing parallel. It's not just switching out asphalt for pavers, right? It's not that simple. So I'll have to have some additional work to figure out what that sub-base thickness needs to be. And there's quantities for aggregates, there's quantities for sand, there's quantities for pavers, asphalt, and we're kind of running a parallel path of how we're
Right.
bidding the project. So
right? The
again, it's not
geometry-
as simple as saying 4 inches of asphalt or 4 inches of permeable pavers is what I'm getting at.
I hear you. The geometry stays the same.
Rob, I've got a question. Did you ever consider concrete pavement on Lake Street?
I didn't purposefully not consider it. I mean, that is one option as well. I mean, the problem with concrete pavement is, there's curing time, and so it's timing wise between the construction of the high rise and pulling boats out of the marina. It would get a little challenging, I would think, to try and stage that. That's probably my biggest knock against concrete, is that
Yeah, that's how they do it now.
staging the construction around life. So,
Nowadays,
That's good enough reason.
yeah.
aggregate surface and they come and like.
Okay,
put that whole-
so I think we know what we're doing here and
Yep.
move forward
Yep.
with the design there. Okay. So moving on to item 8C, then consider water filtration plant needs assessment.
All right, last year, we contracted with City Water and SEH out of Minneapolis to do a filtration plant needs assessment. After our power outage in the summer of 2019 and the sanitary survey of 2018, there were some critical needs and deficiencies from my standpoint that needed to be addressed above and beyond what the sanitary survey showed. Sanitary survey auxiliary power does not currently meet the standard. Floor of the clear well is not at least 2 feet above the water table. Those things we've been grandfathered on over the years. It's been a requirement from the DNR, but they've never pushed it. Now they're pushing it. And we had a discussion, Rob and I had a discussion early last year with Kathy Wunderlich and other people from the DNR. And it was pretty much, you will fix this. You will change these aspects of your plant or you'll be in non-compliance. So like I say, last year, we started this needs assessment, and in your packet, you should have a 70-page response from SEH and City Water. And Mr. Tom Nenning is here today from City Water to help go over this, questions to present it, whatever, and how we're going to proceed to make these changes happen at the water filtration plant.
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to read the 70 pages, if you've had a chance to look at it.
Did you have any was there comments too, as well from Tom?
Tom, do you want to?
Tom, you want to come
Yeah,
up?
why don't you step up to the microphone?
Good evening. Tom Nunnick with City Water. So, yeah, just kind of piggybacking on what Leo had to say. We didn't really have a presentation for the board tonight, but we thought it would be good just to kind of talk maybe through some of the findings and needs analysis that we kind of went through, which is like chapter 3 of the report. So,
And I think most everybody here in the room has been able to come and tour the plant and can see the aging interior infrastructure. You don't notice the deficiencies because they're behind the scenes, but they are there. One of them, all you have to go by is TJ Middle School or even some nice homes. They've got a generator. We have no generator. The thought was always that we had 3 legs of power coming into the filtration plant, and we were assured by We Energies over the years that you'll always have power. You'll never be without. Well, we've proved that that's not the case. And now DNR is saying you will upgrade your backup power supply. And I believe this is the correct way to do it. Buying a generator, having it owned by the city, standing somewhere else, the logistics of that are a nightmare in an emergency. You need to come and run it, send 2 guys to pick it up, bring it down, hook it up, fine. When the power goes out on a hot day or in the middle of a storm and you need to pump water, you don't have that luxury of time to be running around the city looking for your generator. So it's caused, should I say, some sleepless nights. Tom can attest to some phone calls I've gave to him where I've got some angst. Rob can also attest to my concern over this. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but come down and look. Got stuff that I can show you, pumps from 1948 that we're running and counting on to run every day. I've had electricians in and other people in, things from 70 that are told to me, we can make it work today. I'm not sure it's going to work tomorrow for you.
Yeah, and so just kind of piggybacking on that a little bit, that's kind of how we have our discussion and our findings is that it's broken out into 2 categories. One is kind of requirements that we're going to need to fix to make the DNR deficiencies go away. And then the other is just the end of useful life of a lot of the equipment that's at the plant as well. And so, our big thing right now is, as Leo mentioned, the generator. And the city had gotten a grant from EDA for the generator, both for the water and the wastewater. And that construction on that has to start by September of this year. And I think wastewater is ready to go on that. So we can hold off on the start of the water one as it kind of then can run in conjunction with the upgrades at the water treatment plant. So we don't have to design a generator that can fit into today's electrical configuration at the plant and then also then be moved and fit into tomorrow's configuration as well. So we can kind of hold off on that. So we confirmed that with EDA as well. So that was good. The other big thing is the clear wells. And we've talked about this, that they're, need to be raised 2 feet above the groundwater elevation in that area. Currently, they're about 3 feet below the groundwater elevation, so we'd have to raise them up about 5 feet. So in the report, we kind of talk about 3 different alternatives in doing that. And that's really probably about 50% or so of the overall cost of the project is just in doing that work. So I don't know if we wanted to get into those alternatives, if you guys wanted me to kind of show the highlights of those or the differences between them.
If you can bring it back up, I'll can quickly go over some of this in the report. So let's go here.
And while Rob's doing that, I'll just kind of go through, just a couple of the goals that we had mentioned in the report for when we're looking at these alternatives. Of course, we've got to meet EPA and DNR code. We want to maintain the operational flexibility and simplicity that's already in the plant today. We want to maintain service when a clear well is out of service for inspection, which is a minimum of a 5-day period. We want to maintain about 75% of the existing storage that's at the utility plant today. We want to minimize any impact to the open space that's along the lakefront. ability to add a second barrier if needed in the future for treatment, and then, of course, incorporate the new generator into our alternatives. So this is the existing layout of the treatment plant that's there today. Is that right?
Well, here is, this is the addition.
That's right. Okay, so I can't see which option that you've.
Sorry, this is option one.
Okay, so option one. So option one is really doing nothing with the clear wells today. So when we met with the DNR back in earlier this year, this was one of the alternatives that we proposed and said, you know, we're not going to raise the floor level of the clear wells. And in that case, we lose any of the disinfection credits that we're currently receiving inside of the treatment plant. So we get a disinfection credit for chlorine that we add inside the plant and some for filtration. We lose all that, which means our new facility that we're going to build and that we show to the south end of the plant here needs to meet 4 log removal for viruses and 3 log for Giardia. So, but we don't have to do anything with the existing clear wells. So they were fine with that. They liked that option. In option number one, we add UV into the treatment train. That way our clear well that we have shown can be a little bit smaller. So that cuts down our retention time that we're needed to gain our disinfection credits. And then on the west side of the addition is where we would have our pump room. So all of the high lift pumps that are currently in the plant, we would have new high lift pumps that would be put on the west side of the addition, along with the Thomas Port pumping station. That would be in the new high lift pump room as well. The existing Thomas Port pumping station is on the north end of the plant. That would be abandoned and repurposed for other means. So that's our, and then again, our generator would be incorporated into that building addition. And in talking with staff, you know, we really wanted to try to minimize that space that we use on the south end of the plant, because we know that, you know, the public does like to go down there. There's picnic tables out there, and that is accessible to the walkway. So we're really trying to minimize that impact. But unfortunately, the DNR is making us put above grade clear well in to meet code. So the second option that we had looked at would be filling in the bottom 5 feet of each clear well. And so we'd be putting in some sort of a structural flowable fill. We'd raise the floor of the clear well up so that we'd meet code. The problem that we have with this is we would lose so much of the volume in plant number one of our clear well that we could no longer meet our contact time or our disinfection credits. In order to do so, we would have to really increase the amount of chlorine that we add into the treatment process. Right now, I think, Leo, what do you add? You're leaving the plant at about 1 part per million?
We're leaving the plant right now today, 0.95 to 1.05.
So in this option, for plant number one clear well to remain in service, we'd have to run at about 3 parts per million. So in a sense, tripling what we're adding today. And then you would also have plant two, which actually now still has enough volume in there to meet the required CT time and disinfection credits, but that would be at the 1.0 parts per million that Leo was talking about. So we'd have 2 different plants operating completely different, but going into the same distribution system, just not a very viable option to do that. So again, we can't just fill the bottom of the clear wells in. We have to, again, have another clear well on the south side of the plant. And so in this option, we have a space for UV to be added in the future if need be, but the clear well is sized so that we can get our CT times through that clear well. We'll continue to have the existing CT times that we have today through our treatment process. That would be applied. So our clear well design is a little smaller, I think, in this option. And again, we'd be looking at having our high lift pumps moved to the west side of this clear well. And then the other thought process that we had was today, each plant is operated independently of one another. So our low lift pumps that bring water into plant number one are in plant one. We can't pump any water from our plant one low lifts into plant number two. So as part of each option, we've built in some of that flexibility. So now we'd be turning our plant room number 1 into a low lift plant room so it can pump into plant 1 or plant 2. And then in plant number 2 pump room, we put in our intermediate pumps that's going to pump water out of our existing clear wells today, put it into our new clear well. And then we'd also have our backwash pumps located there. And either backwash pump that we have could pull water from either clear well and distribute it to either plant. Because again, today we have one backwash pump in each plant. And if it goes down, then we just can't run that plant. So we really wanted to make sure that we're building in that operational flexibility into each project. The other concern that the DNR had with our pump room is that if you've been to the plant, you've seen that it's submerged below grade. They want to make sure that our motors are above grade. That's another code violation that they're going to make sure that we fix that as part of it. And so in our cost estimate, we do have that addressed as well, where we raise the motors up. The other major aspect of our project is just the electrical equipment that's in the plant today. A lot of it is at or past its useful life. And so upgrading a lot of that electrical equipment that's in the plant. Again, a lot of the master control panels are below grade. We would need to raise those above grade as well, so they're not susceptible to any flooding that could occur. So there are other highlights in here that kind of talk more about the end of useful life of a lot of things. You know, lighting inside of the facility, the SCADA system has kind of reached its end, as well as we're going on eBay to buy parts for updating our SCADA system. So just, you know, while we're doing this project, you know, how much of this do we want to incorporate into this project, into the overall cost of the project, because it is close to the useful life on a lot of things in the plant. And so we came up with, and again, this is like a 15,000 foot view of the plant, but we came up with on the two alternatives that we looked at, 2 cost estimates. I think there were about a little over 13 million and about 14 million on that right now. And again, I don't think we have a action item on today's agenda to make any decisions here, but you know, that's the cost of doing a lot of these improvements. And
Yeah, let me just jump in, Tom, quick. The option 1, 13.5, option 2, 14.2, and then option 2, that flowable fill that Tom was referencing, coming close to 1,800 cubic yards of fill, floatable fill, just to fill those clear wells. That's a lot of fill at a lot of cost. And one thing I will say, all of this stuff that we're gonna do, we are not gonna make any better water than we're putting out today. The water coming out of that treatment plant is great. And all this is a lot of things that the DNR is telling us to do. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be done down there. Clear wells being moved like that, that's a matter of opinion. And the DNR holds that opinion, and we've got our marching orders. As sad as that is.
So, Tom, you had said that about half of these costs are towards the clear well, and the other half are towards normal equipment replacement?
Yeah, roughly about that. I mean, you know, some of the electrical costs are just going to have to be upgraded as well. So, but yeah, the majority, you know, probably about 7 million, I think, if we kind of total it up for the clear well option, which is mandated by the DNR. And then, you know, again, a lot of the electrical upgrades are, you know, going to be about $1 million as part of that as well. So.
Okay, and then, Tom, why don't you touch on, so we're not the only plant that's going through this? Why don't you
Yeah,
talk
so
about-
So as Leo mentioned, you know, the DNR has their opinion. It's not really their opinion, though. It's code, right? And so code in the past has always been something where, you know, DNR has come out, they reviewed it, and they said, yeah, okay, we'll grandfather that in because your plant was built, you know, the original plant was built in 1948. But now with everything that we've seen with problems with water quality and whatnot across our country, DNR is really cracking down on code, and they're saying to everybody, nope, we're not going to grandfather anybody in anymore. Now it's time to upgrade. And so you need to upgrade your plant. You're seeing also, a lot of money that's being talked about investing from our federal government into loans and grants to communities. I think this would be an excellent project for one of those that we'd be investigating as well. You're going to see a lot more dollars put into water treatment from the forever chemicals that are out there and some other problems that our groundwater systems are having in Wisconsin. So while this is unique to Port Washington because, as Leo mentioned, this plant's been here for a long time and the water's been fine the quality of water has been a very high quality that's been produced by the plant. It's time that we bring this up to code though. And DNR is not backing down on that at all.
Right, and they're going through this with a half a dozen or a dozen other surface water plants, right?
Yeah, Oak Creek, South Milwaukee was another one that just went through this as well. So
Oshkosh.
yeah, Oshkosh. So
This is all at once type deal, or is this staggered, all of the items? Is this one big project?
Yeah, I'll quick chime in, and this report was finished and delivered to us on Thursday, so really we as a staff haven't had a time to digest it. Leo and Tom have been working on it a little more on a day-to-day basis than I've been, but this is obviously something that is going to require some staff time to parse through with our consultant, and so we'll be bringing this back. But this is, I guess, kind of a preview for you to take a look at the draft. Obviously, there's a number of things at the plant that need upgrading. We've known about the generator for some time. That is going to have to be somewhat fast tracked because we were fortunate enough to get a large grant for that work. That I have to give all the credit to Bob Harris who secured that grant for us. So we're going to be moving ahead certainly with that. We aren't going to slow down on that at all. But we'll bring something back. I don't know if it'll be at the next meeting, but upcoming with a recommendation to how we would either phase this in or proceed or what the timetable would be.
yeah, the tricky part in all of this is we still have to, as we like to say, we still have to keep the patient alive while we're doing the transplant. So one plant's going to have to run while we're doing work in the other plant, and then vice versa. And so there really is a lot of intricate details that have to go into this that we have to work with staff on. And so again, we just kind of wanted to bring this to everybody today, just to kind of say this is important. We really need your input back to us so that we can finalize that report and then start looking at what are the different options out there for financing and what the impact is going to be to your customers.
But this isn't going to be a 10-year. This isn't going to be a 10-year plan because the DNR has us under orders to complete this work by the end of next year, I believe.
End of this year, I believe, for the Clearwell. So we really need to get a plan in place with DNR so that we can get an extension on that.
We need to show them we're moving ahead in the right direction, and then we pretty much said they'll understand that then, but we need to be going down the road with this.
Yeah, we need to have a compliance plan in and filed with the DNR by the end of this year.
Okay.
Leo, when okay, the generator was that we okayed something a while back on the controls, or we had some. You brought something to the board a while back, probably maybe within a year.
That was this study.
That was this study. Okay, so this
We
is
didn't buy a new
Well, that's
generator
different.
for,
Wait a minute, are we talking about the AWIA? Or are we talking about this study? Well, the AWIA is a risk and resiliency study. That I brought this year.
right, but wasn't there a generator package on one of these?
That's this from last year, yes.
Okay. I thought we kind of said go ahead with that, didn't we? Or
Talk about the generator, but not the complete needs assessment. I've said this numerous times. I don't want to buy a generator and put the wrong generator in, and then in
Right.
2 years, go through the plant and fix things and say, okay, we spent $750,000 on a wrong generator. Now we got to redo it. I don't want to have happen. That's why the needs assessment was done by SEH and City Water.
Right.
And there's been a cost analysis. Tom and Eric that he works with at City Water have all the numbers ready to crunch. Now that we see these numbers, we can put it into a model, correct?
Yeah, so we do have a financial model as part of this project that we can start to put in. You know, when we look at dollar figures, we start putting that in our financial model to determine what's that going to do to your rate structure for your customers. And so
How
again,
long-
as Rob mentioned, you know, this was, you know, kind of finalized last week. And so we're just kind of getting into that right now because we really were waiting to hear back on comments from staff, on comments from the board here as well, before we kind of really get into the detailed financial analysis.
How long would this project gonna be taking? Let's assume we approve it in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, so right now, the time frame that we have is, you know, if we keep moving forward with this project, we could have it done probably by the end of 2024. And I think the generator grant runs out September of 2024. Everything has to be finalized by that time. So,
And the DNR would give you that a lot of time.
correct.
Seeing that they want it started by,
We have to have a notice to proceed
right.
by September 28th of this year for the grant.
Okay.
Well, okay. For the generator, but that's going to come with the wastewater because the wastewater is going to go ahead and do that. So it's going to
Right.
cover that. So what we need to get, like I said, a letter, a compliance plan into DNR by the end of this year, which then talks about our, you know, design, preliminary design report will need to be submitted, a final design, and then going to bid and construction. And all that would take, you know, like I said, till the end of 2024 before everything's done and finished and completed. Right now, that's kind of our draft timeframe.
Yeah, just trying to clear it up.
Any other questions for Tom or Leo or Rob?
Sure. So once this project would be done, are we expecting then that, you know, of course, barring the DNR coming with some new mandate that we're not expecting, are we expecting that this pretty much brings our plant up to the level it needs to be for the next 25 years or something? Or do we have another major project that we're expecting in the next decade or in the 10 years down the road or 5 years or down the road or something?
This will address all the current DNR.
Okay.
Thank you. I thought I talked loud enough, you told me. All right. This will bring everything up to code for the DNR, for what they have on the table now. In 3 years, are they gonna change something? I can't answer that, Alderman Gasper. That I don't know. But for what's there now, yes.
Yeah,
Does this bring us up though to, you know, parts of this plant are from 1948? Does this bring us up to where we're not expecting that something major needs to be replaced in the near future?
We're replacing all that, so it's in here. It addresses all the critical end of life, stuff that's already past end of life, approaching end of life, and in critical need of being repaired now.
All right. Thank you. That's what I want to know on that. My other question is on the Clearwell basins on the south side of the plant. What will the outside appearance on that be? Because our Clearwell Basin 1 is in the building. Clearwell Basin 2 is a raised area ground on the north side of the building. I presume this is going to be a building section for these Clearwells?
And I would assume we're gonna match the plant. We're
Okay.
gonna make it look like it should be there.
Are these going to be like a single-story area, a two-story area?
What was the final figure on that, Tom?
so I think if you go back to, I think these are going to be about, I want to say 10 to 15 feet out of the ground.
Okay.
It's going to stick out. So look like almost a two-story addition.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's what I'm most likely to hear from constituents is what's it going to look like on the outside. So
Right.
have to ask that. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any further discussion?
I just have one comment. I'm glad it's in your district, Mike. Okay.
That was it, huh? All right.
There's a lot of people live across the street from it. They're going to be asking me questions.
Right. You know, and if, I am more than willing to give anybody a tour that wants to see what we're dealing with on the inside, if that helps. And if anybody in the room here wants a tour again or hasn't had one, come on down. We make time for that. It's important to see what we're dealing with.
Sounds good. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Tom. All right. Moving right along then to item 8D. That's consider amendment to engineering services agreement for the wastewater treatment plant generator addition project. Dan?
Okay, last year, we were in the process of, actually Donahue was in the process of advertising this project down at the plant. And we were ready to award it to a contractor, and then we realized we were just awarded a grant. So we had to put everything on hold because the feds obviously want to do things their way, and we couldn't award it at the time. So after learning about the grant and what we had to do, that's what this is all about. Donahue's gonna have to re-advertise this, rebid it, and award it to a contractor under EDA requirements. And so they've added to their to the original contract an addendum, and that's what I have brought to the board tonight for approval. Everything is spelled out in the addendum as far as what they have to do, which is pretty much what I just said. And the additional costs and the description of what they're going to do is on the last page of the addendum, which is on the back side of the signature sheet. So it's 8 things. I'll just state what they are. It's EDA, which is the grant kickoff meeting, EDA progress meeting, modify front-end specifications for EDA compliance, because the feds are very specific of how we have to complete this project. Prepare bidding documents incorporating addenda, attend pre-bid meeting, answer bidder questions, develop a bid tabulation, and provide award recommendation to us. Now, this is a 80-20 grant, so we're going to have to come up with 20% of the expense, which, in my opinion, it's probably going to be $100,000 or less for us as far as putting in this generator down at the treatment plant. Donahue's got all the engineering ready to go, so it's just a matter of advertising and finding out who's going to bid on this again. We had 7 or 8 interested parties last time. We're hoping we get the same amount this time. And if we go ahead and start this soon, we're hoping that maybe this fall, late fall, maybe we have a generator. I know there's a long lead time on big diesel generators, so this could take a while to get the generator in, but obviously that's what we're waiting for. We'd have to, I think it's 12 to 16 week lead time at this point for generators that size.
And this 10,000 is covered by the grant as well, it says, right?
Yes.
So really, it's only going to be about 2,000 for us. Okay. Any questions for Dan on this? This seems pretty straightforward here. Okay. Do we have a motion then to approve the amendment to the Donahue Engineering Amendment for bidding and construction-related services?
Also move.
We have a motion by Alderman Cigarette. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Gasper. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Unanimous. Thank you, Dan.
Mike Stoll.
Good job finding a grant, too. That's nice.
Bob Harris did all the
Very
much
good. Yeah.
legwork for it.
Kudos to Bob Harris.
Makes it easier. Very nice.
You know, Mike? You know, Mike?
Okay. Next item on the agenda, JD is getting more toys. So this is what, three or 4 months in a row? Yeah. All right. Item 8E, consider purchase of a Chevy 5500 cab and chassis. We'll let JD tell us what he's looking at.
Okay, so I guess I'll kind of start with a little background. Well, as far as paying for it, I know Alderman Benning will appreciate this, and Tony. So initially, when we did the 2021 budget, the last item that we had was a 3/4 ton pickup truck that was estimated at $40,000. But with some other projects coming under budget, like the sweeper and both 5-yard dump trucks, there's enough money to cover this truck. So we're basically just taking money from other projects that came in under budget and converting them to this project. So the reason that we're going from a 3/4 ton to this truck is last year was the first year we had our 500-gallon brine tank for our anti-icing and de-icing. And we quickly learned that that 500-gallon tank was pretty much maxing out the suspension on that truck. That's a 1-ton 3500 that has a dump box on it. And it's just too much weight on that truck. That truck also was used to plow in the alleys. And having a dump box, it's super handy in winter. If we have to go out with a second chipper, we can throw a box on it. Or if Leo needs stone for a water main break, we can have that truck back. So this truck will essentially have the tank on it all winter long for doing the anti-icing and de-icing. We're going to put a plow on it. So during a storm, this will essentially be the truck that I'm in. That way, if I got to clean up corners or if a truck goes down and guys get behind, I can kind of help out not only with the plow on my truck, but the liquid off the back. And then in summer, this will kind of be like a workhorse truck for us. It'll be fully outfitted with tools for whether it's asphalting, masonry jobs, crack filling. I don't know if you guys know, but the street department's kind of the go-to for all the random projects that come up, whether it's fab welding or whatever. So it's nice to have a truck that when you go to a job, you're not making 10 trips back and forth to the shop getting tools. And now with our track skid loader showing up next week, which is awesome, this will be the truck that we pull that trailer with. So it'll just be one of the 2 diesel pickup trucks that we have. So, so I requested 3 bids, and for those of you who don't know, getting new vehicles in 2021 is very, very difficult. Most of the this size trucks that we buy, we get through Schmidt Brothers. It's nice because they're local. They're easy to work with. They like seeing their trucks in the community. But I was, I kind of started this in March and wanted to bring it to the April meeting, and they said they couldn't get any pricing. And they really weren't sure with availability. They flat out told me that that Dodge would not be able to supply me a vehicle this year. And then last week they told me that they wouldn't be able to help me with the Ford price and gave me some other dealerships to go to. So the only bid I received was from Holtz Chevrolet in Hales Corners. And that was for $50,148. I bought a lot of these vehicles, and I know that's right in the ballpark of where the pricing is. And according to the salesman, he's got a slot open this week, and we could possibly see this truck in 2 to 3 months, which is the best I've heard from any vehicle we've bought so far. So my recommendation would be to purchase the Chevy 5500. Now this is just the cab and the chassis for $50,148.
You said this was close to your cost estimates? that you anticipate?
Yeah, so we bought an F-350 last year, and it's a cab and chassis. Now that was a crew cab. This is going to be a standard cab, but this is also 2 sizes bigger, and I mean they're real close. I mean if Ford would have came in, to be honest with you, they'd probably been a little bit more expensive. Dodge probably would have been a little bit cheaper. But we kind of like to stick with the Ford and the Chevys. So,
Any questions for JD?
This is a 1 ton?
no, this is actually like a 5,500. So if it was a Ford, so your 350s or your 3,500s, those are your 1 tons. Now we're getting into like mid-sized trucks. So this is actually 2 sizes bigger than your traditional 1 ton, but it's a regular cab dually.
So this is capable of handling what?
Yeah, so really the biggest difference is the suspension, and that's what we're looking for, is payload capacity. So payload is what you can actually put on the back of the truck, and that's what we need with that brine tank.
So you're not going to be replacing a truck with this one. This is
Yeah, we're going to be getting rid of 2005 3500 with a service body. So that's what we're going to be getting rid of.
Speaking of getting rid of them, how did we do on selling the other vehicles that we?
Haven't got there yet because I'm waiting to find out for sure when the new vehicles are coming in. Because with the new 5-yarders, I got an email today. Those trucks, the one truck isn't set to be starting to be built until like September, middle September. And they take 3 weeks to build, but they're having a lot of issues. Mm-hmm. And then even when the chassis comes, then they got to go to Casper, and that's 2 months. So I don't want to sell anything until I know when the new trucks are coming. So, and I mean, the sweeper was supposed to be here in April. And they don't know when it's going to come. They're ready to build it, but they can't get chassis right now. It's a Freightliner chassis, and they don't know when they're going to get them. So that's kind of all on hold right now.
Yeah, when you do sell it, let us know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, you'll trust me. You'll be hearing about it. Yep.
Okay, any other questions for JD? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the purchase of the Chevy 55 regular cab.
Phil, I'll make the motion.
Got a motion by Phil. Do we have a second? Second by Jim. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, JD. And do we have one more?
Yep.
Let's see. Yep, so we have to consider the purchase of the flat bend V-plow and toolboxes for 2022 cab and chassis.
Okay, so yeah, this is basically the setup for that truck. So we just approved the cab and chassis. Excuse me. Now this is the setup for the truck. So like I said, there's going to be a 9-foot 6-inch V-plow on the front. And then behind the cab will be a 2-foot wide toolbox. And then a 9-foot flatbed. And then there will be 2 48-inch wide toolboxes that we can mount to them, mount to the flatbed in summer. So we basically have all the tools on our truck whenever we need them. If you look at the next page, that's kind of an example of what the truck will look like. So you have the actual back of cab, and then you've got that 2-foot wide toolbox with a flatbed, and then toolboxes on the side. So, and I was able to get three bids from that. The first one was from Casper's Truck Equipment. That was for $13,788. The next was from Monroe Truck Equipment for $15,611. And the last one was Breaking Equipment for $17,300. And our recommendation is to go with the Casper bid for $13,788. And that's just for the equipment. That'll just be shipped to us, and then we'll actually build the truck per se.
What's the toolbox made out of? Is it?
It's aluminum.
Any other questions for JD? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the purchase of the flatbed V plow and toolboxes for the 2022 cab and chassis?
I move approval to purchase the setup from Casper's Truck and Equipment for $13,788.
All right, we have a motion by Alderman Gasper. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Phil. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, JD.
Time delay on the phone.
Right? Okay, so we are in now to project updates. Rob?
All right, home stretch. So the quick rundown, 2021 street improvements. Our schedule has the contractor starting this week. He's been mobilizing on site. I'm looking at Leo. We haven't discussed. Okay, so
The barricades are up on the ends of the project on Butel. I have seen one piece of equipment, it's probably vision store, some kind of a store machine, but nothing else from it also.
But I think there's some materials delivery, right? Did you say we have some material?
They got the fabric and the catch basins. I haven't seen any material.
Okay. So stay tuned, but I haven't heard that they're in any sort of significant delay, so.
They were supposed to, I was told they were gonna start Monday, relocations came in for tomorrow. They might mobilize equipment tomorrow, they're not gonna start working.
2021 sidewalk improvements, that one is getting kicked into delay mode, the one on Hales Trail. The contractor has decided that they were going to reschedule it for June. We talked about it a little bit and coordinating with some of our staff work time. They're actually now going to delay it until July. So that looks like a 6-week project up on Hales Trail and Crestview. But again, we're looking at now a mid-July start date, which is about the time where we understand that the other citywide 2021 sidewalk improvement project is going to start. I haven't gotten any updated schedule on that. They've just been saying end of July since they were awarded the contract. Heart of the Harbor, we've been working, JD and I have been working with Main Street on coordinating the work down there. We anticipate that that'll begin in the end of May, and we're targeting a late June, early July finish on that project. So, and then I'm going to insert one before I turn it back over to JD for the lighthouse uplighting. We did finalize the Spinnaker West Pond design today, and that'll be advertised on Quest this Thursday. It'll be in your Ozaki Press next Thursday for 2 weeks, and so that'll be brought to the board at our June meeting for approval, for award, I should say. And then, lighthouse uplighting. I'll give try to make it a quick intro. So this is a project we've been talking about really for years. This goes back to, I think this idea first came up in the early 2000s, to tell you the truth. And I had forwarded an idea that I had heard to do this type of uplighting to Main Street. Main Street, I think, kicked it around. They received some technical help from Doug Schaefer, who's on their committee and is in lighting design. My take on it is because LED has come so far, so in the last few years, being able to use solar power, because we don't have any electrical connections to the lighthouse. It needs to be solar powered, and previously, I think their experiments in solar power in the earlier part of the last decade didn't create a lot of light on the lighthouse. But I think the technology has caught up, and so now we have some lights in place. Main Street has asked the the street department, as JD alluded to. They're the go-to group. We won't need the truck for this one, I don't think, but maybe the boat. Yes, right. We'll come for a boat at the next board meeting. Anyhow, so JD has an update on it, and I asked him to share it with you.
Yeah, so we've been kind of dealing, we've had this on our plate for probably the last 2 years, but I'm working with Doug Schaefer, but, last year with COVID hitting, it kind of got put on the back burner. But we finally got it going forward. So where we're at right now is, so the kit that Main Street bought included the actual batteries, the solar panels, the brackets, the actual light themselves, and all the cabling. But what we needed was we needed to design and have fabricated the actual fixtures that we're going to mount from the lighthouse and hold the lights in place. So working with Doug, we kind of came up with a design. He put in CAD. He sent it out to some fab shops, and we got some bids. And at the last Friends of Park and Rec meeting, we got that bid approved. So the purchase order's been in, and we should actually have something back in our hands in about 3 weeks. It's all stainless steel and aluminum, but essentially what they're looking at doing is on the 2 inside corners, facing shore, is mounting lights on the very top of the lighthouse, shining down, and then there'll be one that's actually mounted underneath the lighthouse, shining down to kind of illuminate the arches. So yeah, hopefully we get this, the fabricated actual fixtures back in the next 3 weeks, and hope, possibly in 4 weeks to 5 weeks, depending on weather and our availability, the lighthouse will be lit up. So, and the way it's going to work is obviously it's solar powered. So they're turned on, as the sun comes down, and then when fully powered, they're supposed to run for like 5 to 6 hours and then shut off. So it'll be an interesting project. So, but yeah, that's where we're at. It's finally going to happen.
Oh, JD, the uplighting is really going to be downlighting.
Right. Correct. Yeah. So the 2 inside corners from the very top will be downlit, and then there will be one underneath the structure, but that will also be shined down. But from shore, you'll be able to see the arches. So from what I'm told from Doug's the lighting guy. So.
Very cool project.
So the fabrication, the fab quotes came in at like $766. So it really wasn't that bad. And then we needed new batteries because, the batteries are from 7 years old, and we're not dragging 7-year-old batteries all the way out there and all the way to the top, and then they last a week, and then we got to carry them back and bring new batteries. So then the new batteries are like $510. So.
Okay. Alderman Gassman.
Just a comment on this. I think this is a horrible idea, and that's from 25 years of Lake Michigan search and rescue experience. When you're out there working at night, you're dependent upon your night vision being good, and any additional light source is really, really a pain to work around. The standard operating procedure from the rescue boat is if we're pulling in a boat and there's any seas whatsoever, we bring them in a long tow into the outer harbor, and then we have to transfer them into a side tow to bring them into the inner harbor. And having a big glowing lighthouse that we'd be staring into when we're trying to pull the boat in and see exactly what's going on is not going to be helpful in the least. I think it's a horrible idea. Navigation structures aren't meant to be lit. They are meant to ward you off from hitting things. And it's really going to make things harder for working out there.
So I know Doug had kind of worked with the Coast Guard and got their approval per se. So it's not when all the light is supposed to be meant to seen from shore. So as you're out on the lake looking back at the lighthouse, you really shouldn't see any of the light. And like I said, I'm not the light guy. I'm just kind of saying what he told me.
when there's 8-foot seas, we do not transfer them from Long Toe on the west side of the, or on the east side of the lighthouse. We have to bring them into the harbor where we're at least somewhat protected to be able to bring them in. So we're working usually in the lighthouse, inside the harbor, trying to see there. And yeah, it's meant to be seen from shore. And the Coast Guard might say it's okay. I have some opinions about the local Coast Guard, none of them good. But it's not going to be helpful for working in the outer harbor on emergencies.
Can it be turned off manually by remote?
No. Not that I know of.
Where is the solar collector going to be for the?
So there'll be the ones for the lights up on top will actually be all the way on the top, and then the solar panel for the one that would be underneath it will actually be on like the first on top of the concrete pillar, which is actually there. If you drive past, there's actually a solar panel there already.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know they do make lights that are low. I'm trying to think of the word for them. Yeah, you don't see a lot of the light. It just lights right there. Like Arizona, they're required to have certain lights so there's no uplight.
yeah, I mean these are made to go pretty much straight down because they actually have like louvers mounted underneath. So it's a bunch of like little squares so that the light's supposed to go straight down. It's not supposed to go out at all.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
One quick question. JD, I know you're not the light guy, so you may not know the answer to this. But if we do finally come up with a way to paint the lighthouses, are these going to be easily removed?
Yeah, yeah. So essentially
Done
the way
every
that,
turn?
yeah, so the way that they're actually mounted is there's actually just 2 U-bolts and then a stainless steel cable that wraps around. So yeah, I mean, because Tony asked the same question and we could probably have him taken off in less than an hour.
Okay, great.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Any forthcoming events we need to be made aware of? None? Nothing? All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Jim. Do we have a second? Second by Phil. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.